Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another Axel 72 video. And in today's video, I'm going to be giving my prediction for the Paro versus Jonathan Navarro fight. And so if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so, like the video if you do indeed like the video, and feel free to join the Patreon. It's only £5 a month, and you can have any custom video that you want realistically about fighting. I mean, I can do a breakdown, of prediction, analysis for just what's going on in the combat sporting world at the moment. There is going to be their first video just out there, just for paid members only, coming soon, hopefully within the next couple of days, so feel free to go check that out. But yeah, let's get straight into this. So for this fight, it's two guys who are coming off a loss, and it's two guys who actually both had their loss happen on the same night. Obviously, Paro's was at a much higher levels than that of Jonathan Navarro, but nonetheless, I suppose to an extent, maybe it was a step up for both guys. I mean, Paro, you have to look at his resume, and his fights are, I think he's really underrated of the resume that he has. He's kind of, within his last, what, 4, 5 fights have been in nothing but 50-50s on paper going into the fights, or him being an underdog. I mean, he fought Hitchins, which was, you would definitely say probably a 50-50. Then before that, he fought Matias, where he was a big underdog. And of course, Matias was on a great knockout streak. He looked deadly, and he was just stopping everybody in his path. So Paro was able to win. He fought Montana Love before then, which was a guy who was still in a really good position in his career, and he was an exciting up and coming fighter. And realistically, he hasn't really been the same since. And before that, he fought Brock Jarvis, who, yes, you look at his more recent performance against Keith Thurman, and that wasn't a good showing from him, and showcased that he isn't really a world level type of fighter. But that was a Brock Jarvis at the time where, that was definitely a 50-50 fight. And Paro was able to knock him out in emphatic fashion when Brock Jarvis was seen as the more powerful fighter. So, like I say, I feel like Liam Paro's resume is definitely underrated. And I don't think this is a major step down realistically, because yes, he did lose against Hitchins, and he did, lose quite significantly. Yes, it was only a split decision, but you could tell that he was, he was generous to get the split decision, in my opinion. I thought that Hitchins kind of did control from the 7th round to the 12th round, and picked up a few before that as well. He did kind of dominate for the most part, I believe, and you know, it did mean that I think he did lose a bit more significantly than you kind of look at on his record, but it still wasn't significant enough for him to, I suppose, feel like he needs to take a drastic step down in opponent, perhaps more so like somebody like a Tim Tszyu did. I feel like he may be inspired by Tim Tszyu because, of course, for Paro, this is a homecoming fight. He hasn't fought in his home country of Australia since that Jarvis fight, which was 3 years ago now. And of course, Tszyu had two fights in which, his last, his one against Murtazaliev was quite a drastic defeat. And then he's managed to go back to Australia, have a fight, and then win that fight quite convincingly. And then now he's getting an opportunity for a world title. And I'm sure Liam Paro will be hoping something similar would be the same for him. Obviously, Navarro, like I say, isn't a major step down. He's had a bit of an interesting career. I mean, there is something in which I suppose both these fighters have similarly kind of had in their careers, but this was back in the amateurs. They were both at the same Youth World Championships in Bulgaria all them years ago, and so I suppose maybe to an extent it's been destined that they would one day fight each other. But Navarro was promoted by Golden Boy. This was kind of at the maybe the best parts of his career. This was 2018, 2019 type of time, and then he just kind of went away for 5 years. And seemingly, what I've read up about why he just didn't fight from 2019 to 2024 was, COVID, then just a bad kind of run of injuries, and having to really take time to repair and heal and get back. And, that most probably has stinted him as a fighter, because he was an exciting up and coming young name, and was a name in which, like I say, had a good backing behind him, was getting some good finishes, and was looking impressive. But with the 5 years away, I feel like that probably has affected him. And the fact that he's had two fights since then, and one being a little bit of a step up, but not nowhere near a world level type of fighter, and then losing showcases that perhaps, that 5 years off is is quite a bad thing for anybody's career, and so it will be interesting to see what type of version of Navarro we get for Paro. I mean, something that I do find interesting is the fact that he has been, of course, able to go back home and have a fight on No Limits Boxing OUS card. And does that mean he's still being promoted by Matchroom? I mean, secretly, without kind of anybody really knowing, without it getting really publicly disclosed, Matchroom did drop Matias after the Matias loss versus Paro, and that wasn't a bad loss. Maybe Matias was trying to price himself out and asking for too much, and Matchroom just didn't see the investment worthwhile. And has Paro had the same outcome happen to him? Has he been dropped by Matchroom as a result of his close loss to Hitchins? I'd like to hope not. I'd like to hope that if he wins this, he comes back with Matchroom and he has big fights on the horizon. But we will have to wait and see because, like I say, seemingly Matchroom are willing to drop certain big name fighters after one defeat. So we will, like I say, have to wait and see. I feel like something you can't forget, even though, like I've touched upon, Paro is coming off loss, something you can't forget is how good of a game plan he had versus Matias. I mean, obviously, you look at the game plan he had versus Hitchins, and it definitely wasn't the best. You could tell that he wasn't dealing with the speed that well. It was a completely different type of game plan, to be honest. He was lunging in too much and he was getting caught with shots. He, like I say, just couldn't deal with the hand speed of Hitchins and the movement, and inevitably he did get outclassed in the element. But when you look at his performance against Matias, I feel like that style definitely suits him more. And I mean, Navarro is a more aggressive fighter than that of Hitchins. Hitchins is a tough fighter to be able to deal with just because of the speed of hand and because he can fight on the front or the back foot so well, and maybe even prefers to fight on the back foot. And so, you know, when he fought Matias, what he did so well was the fact that he was able to kind of be all the way out or all the way in. And when you're fighting a fighter with such deadly power to an extent, you have to be really sharp, really switched on the entirety of the fight. And it's not like fighting something like a Hitchins where you can perhaps get away with certain things. You can get punished, but it might not be a brutal kind of one punch type of punishment in which something like a Matias might be able to distribute on you. And he was very good at, like I say, either being two out or two in close, where he was able to tie up Matias and frustrate him. And yes, it wasn't perhaps the best kind of game plan for the fans to see. I don't think it was the most entertaining thing to watch, but it was definitely a game plan in which was really impressive, and you can see that the team really drilled this into him, this mindset of what he had to do to be able to win this fight, to win that fight, and he did really well, and inevitably that did, of course, get him a world title. And so you got to remember that he has this team around him and he has this in him to be able to channel really good game plans and keep disciplined and keep focused and keep switched on, which is something in which you have to have as a world type of fighter. And I mean, other good things he does well. I mean, I think he steps into his jab well. He's got quite a nice high guard for the most part. I think Navarro definitely drops his hands more so. He does kind of continuously try and respond with shots, and he was doing that throughout the entirety of the fight versus Hitchins. He was continually launching in with the left, which was landing on quite a few occasions, and that was the shot which was definitely having the most success for Paro. But again, at the same time, it was also a shot which was punishing him the most, because that's when he was getting caught from him lunging in and launching in with that shot, because it just wasn't putting himself in the best of positions defensively to be able to deal with the hand speed of Hitchins. He, like I said, can deal with aggressive fight as well. He's able to, distribute out solid feints as well and kind of draw you into the fight a bit. He's consistent. What you kind of see is what you're going to get from him. Like I say, he's disciplined, consistent, goes to a game plan well, even if it's, maybe he should have made some more adjustments against Hitchins, but maybe you blame that again on the team, so I'm not entirely sure. And he can fight on the front foot or the back foot well. Perhaps more negatives about him. I think when he tries to be aggressive himself, he's not always the best at that. If he comes into a fight overconfident and trying to force the aggressiveness, yes, he's been able to get that one kind of massive knockout when he was being the more aggressive fighter against Brock Jarvis, but I think that came to him naturally. That wasn't just him actually trying to go out there and have a more aggressive game plan. So if he just boxes how he feels most comfortable, then perhaps that'll work. I don't think he should try and force the fight and try and force the aggressiveness. I think he doesn't necessarily make the counters work that well. I don't think his timings is the best with counters. Like I say, he lunges in. I think his hand speed isn't anything too crazy, but I guess when you're fighting up against the Hitchins, anybody's hand speed isn't going to look the best. His head movement isn't the best either. He doesn't have the best of shots variation. I think that's what's something in which I might give Navarro, is the shot variation in which Navarro does have. He can get caught coming out, he can get caught at a jab, and I mean, quite often he was getting caught with the strong jab in which Hitchins throws. I don't think people kind of realise how strong of a jab Hitchins does have, and the fact that he can shorten it up as well is really impressive. And he can be made to chase a bit at times if you are comfortable around moving on the back foot. Speak about Navarro as a fighter. Like I said, I think he's got varied shot selection, and again, that probably is the best thing in his arsenal. The fact that he will be continually distributing combinations all over the body and to the head as well, and kind of going to the body, going up to the head, and even going back down to the body nicely as well. He doubles up his jab okay, and I would say perhaps his jab is a bit more imposing than that of Paro's at times. He probably does prefer to fight in close though, and like I say, he'll dig to the body nicely, and I think he carries a decent level of power. I don't think it's anything too crazy, but it might perhaps be more so eye-catching than that of Paro's. He turns into his punch as well, which, like I say, if he gets you on the ropes, he'll definitely turn into his punch as well. But it's just with the fact that Paro does fight well on the back foot, is he going to be able to actually get him in a position where he can let off these combinations on the front foot? He's often bullish at times, and that will be definitely interesting to see if he is able to bully Paro at all. If, Paro tries to be going in for the clinch often, if Navarro might be able to shove him off. And I suppose negatives about him, I think he is quite lazy coming in because he does just drop his hands quite a lot and leaves himself very open when he's just trying to come in, and that's when he can get caught with plenty of shots. His speed isn't the best, and I think he does, like I say, waste shots at the same time, especially when he's fighting at a mid-range. He can be outthrown in close, but not often. He can load up a bit too long when he's at a mid-range. He can sit on the ropes himself if he's on the back foot. His accuracy is limited at times. He can drop his hands, like I say. He can be quite uncontrolled at points. His urgency isn't the best as well. Like I say, it seemingly is the case where he is just fighting a bit lazily at times, just walking forwards onto stuff. And of course, this is a big step up. You got to think that, like I say, this is maybe not a major step down for Paro, but this is a big step up for Navarro, if that makes sense. I mean, Navarro hasn't fought anybody at the level of Paro, but is still a decently recognised, name to an extent, who has got a good resume, or more of a good record on paper. But Paro isn't. He could have been taken maybe a journeyman type opponent, or had a real step down. And I feel like at least fighting somebody who has only had one defeat and it was a decision. It's not fighting somebody who's been in loads of wars and yes, maybe is a bit more of a bigger name, but is a bit of a gatekeeper. Navarro isn't a gatekeeper fighter. He's going to be coming into this fight thinking that he deserves to go on to fight for a world title just as much as that of Liam Paro. I mean, this is for a WBO Global Super Lightweight title. Yes, that isn't a major title, but I mean, Paro is ranked still well with all the governing bodies, and you'd think, perhaps he could get into a world title shot after this. I mean, we're looking at what's happening with Teofimo Lopez at the moment, and Teofimo was kind of linked to go and fight Haney. That seemingly almost happened. Would that have been at welterweight? Maybe. So would that have meant that Lopez would go and vacate his title? Perhaps, and it might actually happen soon. I mean, it's been so many talks about Lopez going up and fighting somebody in the welterweight division. Now that Ennis has moved on to the super welterweight division, that probably won't happen, but there's still other names in which perhaps might tempt Teofimo Lopez to move up, and so if that does happen, then perhaps one of these guys could really easily slide in there for a vacant world title shot. Who do I think is going to win though? I think Liam Paro will win via unanimous decision. Like I say, I think he's going to be able to land quite comfortably on Navarro and quite consistently, and even if he is lunging in and even if he is being the more aggressive fighter, I think his work is more accurate and just cleaner in general, and he might be able to, get caught with a few shots, Paro, but the fact that he keeps his hands up and the fact that he is, of course, the way more experienced fighter at a top level, I feel like he's going to expose Navarro for, like I say, not being quite there yet, and that's when Paro is going to be able to make the most of it and win relatively comfortably via unanimous decision. I don't think it's going to be a fight in which is going to excite the fans crazily, but I think it will be a good showing from Paro that he's still got these skills and he is still making somewhat of a claim for a world title push. Will he get a world title shot? Like I say, possibly if there is a vacant title, but I don't think any of the world champions will look at a performance which ends in a decision for against Jonathan Navarro as a fighter to then go on to fight for a world title. I don't think anybody's going to care about Liam Paro going and fighting for a world title if he does win this fight. So I think a fight which perhaps could really make sense, especially if Paro wins via decision, would be a Kambosos Jr. fight, and that's only because it would be a big fight in Australia. Yes, neither of these guys have got crazily big fan bases, but both of these guys have represented Australia at a world level, and the Australian fans do like to get behind their own. Yes, Kambosos is coming off a bad defeat versus Hitchins, a much worse defeat than that of Liam Paro's, but they have that similar opponent there. Perhaps, with them both being with Matchroom, that perhaps could still happen. And I mean, I wouldn't hate it. It maybe wouldn't be the best for Kambosos' career. I think that Kambosos perhaps should retire, but Kambosos isn't that old. I mean, he's only 32 years of age and he's not had a tremendous amount of kind of wars on his resume. Yes, he's been stopped twice in back-to-back fights now, but they've been against really top guys and he's not been, like I say, in wars. So maybe a Kambosos versus Liam Paro fight could be an interesting one. I don't know if I'm reaching too much there. If not a Santiago fight, he's the mandatory for the WBO. He fought Haney a while ago and lost, but he's on a decent fight winning streak. He beat Fierro, who of course is going in for a rematch against Pitbull Cruz, so that was a good win for Santiago to have. He also beat Campa via TKO in round 1, and he won his last fight via TKO as well, so he's on a good run. He's in a mandatory position. Perhaps Paro versus Santiago could happen. If not, maybe a Delgado. I think Delgado at this point with Top Rank really needs to get moved on and gets pushed up. I mean, his resume is just so weak compared to what his actual record is saying. And like I say, I feel like it's his time at the moment for him to get at least a bigger name on his resume. So something like a Liam Paro could be that if Top Rank aren't quite ready to put him in for a world title just yet. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you didn't, like the video, subscribe if you're new. And thanks for watching.